What is up, guys, and welcome back to another Odd Popcorn for that review. I'm Chris,
I'm Nick.
and today we are talking about the brand new Indiana Jones movie, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So this one was directed by James Mangold. So this is the first one that Steven Spielberg and really George Lucas don't have anything. I mean, I think they're executive producers, but they're not making this movie really. And this is Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm. So a whole new team behind this, and 15 years after the last one. Let's kick it off with our positives on this movie. What are some things you liked about this movie?
I mean, it was an Indiana Jones movie, to me at least. It had some archaeology, some mystical items, some magic, some supernatural stuff. It had
Hmm.
action. I guess those are some positive things.
I thought
The
that I thought that Phoebe Waller-Bridge
mhm.
as Helena Shaw and to some extent Antonio Banderas, but he didn't have a lot to do. But I thought both of those roles were acted well, and I really like Toby Jones in everything.
Mhm.
So more Toby Jones, please. Um, and if I was gonna pick out like it opens pretty well, I think, with a asterisk that's worth talking about in a second. But
Yeah.
like for the most part, the first 22 minutes are a good little solid like Indiana Jones short. Um, and and that's where you get the most Toby Jones, and I like Toby Jones a lot. And like I said, the Phoebe Waller-Bridge does a good job as an actress,
Mhm.
and I think I like Mads Mikkelsen in anything he ever does.
Yep.
So he shows up as usual and puts on a good show. He never doesn't.
Same with Boyd Holbrook. I think he does a really good job, especially when he's playing villains or just like a
Yeah,
that type of
yeah.
character.
Um, that's the main standouts for me. That first 22 minutes and Phoebe Waller-Bridge's acting and Toby Jones's acting, and for the most part, Toby Jones' character. But
And I did like some of like the references they did to the older movies as well. I thought that was kind of neat, but
I
it's a
mean,
small thing.
most of the like flashback stuff is pretty good. It's just got this big asterisk hanging over it that it depends on how you feel about the de-aging technology and how it's used. I think it's done really well. It's just for me, and I don't know how everybody else is, but for me, I guess I'm like really sensitive to that like uncanny valley feeling you get when somebody looks like kind of so close to right, so close to like a real person, but not quite.
Yeah.
And I got some of that, especially on like whenever they show like a close up of Indiana Jones' face, it feels like they're trying to show off their hard work and everything, but it like shows off the flaws in it to me,
And it did seem
you
like
know.
there were certain parts where it looked more realistic than it did in other parts, and maybe they were just like moving faster, so it was harder to tell. I don't know.
And a lot of it goes on at night to hide a little. It's always easier to do CGI at night, but
Mhm.
it didn't hold me back too much. It's just that when they would do close-ups of him with that de-aged look, I felt like I'm distracted from paying attention to what's actually happening in the movie.
Mhm.
Um, but for the most part, that's where my positives lie. Unfortunately, for me, the negatives are many.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you felt, but I wrote down a lot of thoughts like shortly after um, watching this, and I kind of wrote them down as they came to me. But like, my first thing is just in general, it's very much it's long.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, I don't know if it's longer than the others. I didn't look. It
I think
feels
it is. I
long.
mean, the first one's only like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. This one felt how long was it? Like 2 hours and
2 hours
15
and
minutes?
35 minutes.
It was 2
2
hours
hours
and
and
35
35
minutes?
minutes.
Yeah, it did feel
And
pretty
that
long.
feels long to me, and I don't think it needed all that. And it feels very like we'll get into a little bit, but this is not a plot that you want to. I'm gonna tell you a breakdown of because it's very much like we got to find the thing. It's a very important historical thing. We find the thing. Oh, it's only half a thing. We got to find the other. Well, no, before we find the other half of a thing, we got to find a code that tells us directions to a thing that when we unlock the secret code door, that'll take us into a chamber that has directions to a thing that shows us how to find a spot where we can go during a certain time period where this will and there the other half of this will be, and then we'll find another thing. And every time they find a new thing, the villain character is there again to be like, thanks for finding that for me, Dr. Jones.
Yeah.
I'll be taking that, and then it all happens again. They go dive for something and they find it out, and there he is again with his goons, and he's like, thanks for finding that, doing all my work for me, Dr. Jones. Let's go find another thing. It's just very like, God, for 2.5 hours, it's just like, look for another thing, get on a plane, find another thing, get on a boat, find another thing, get on a plane. You know what I'm saying? I don't
Yeah.
know.
And
and
I did feel the movie was like very action packed for a lot of the 2.5 hours. It was like the movie
Possibly the
starts,
most
yeah, like 85 to 90% of the movie I think was like straight up action chase scene, like three or
constant.
four different action chase scenes. Like it starts off kind of like a big action scene, and
Hmm.
then it goes like you said, like, well, I guess a little bit spoilery. Like it starts in the past, of course,
Hmm.
and big action chase scene on a train, picks back up a little bit slow, big action chase scene. You get a little bit of a break, big action chase scene. Like it's a
There are
lot.
probably, I mean, it felt like there were 30 action set pieces in this movie, and
Yeah.
they, it starts to, that doesn't add weight to the story. At a point, that takes weight away. It becomes like a wall of noise or something. Like
Mhm.
I was getting bored. I find myself getting bored in the middle of action scenes sometimes, where I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know, but he's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, everybody's gonna be all right. and uh, and the background of this is both. I don't want to speak for you, but to some extent, both of us feel this way. But like for me, having I rewatched all of these except for Temple of Doom. I've seen Temple of Doom not long ago, but I rewatched all of them leading up to this again, and I think that they're all pretty good to different degrees and everything. But I think looking back, there's a big role that nostalgia plays in those. I think.
Yeah.
Like
Is
I
it?
think they're good movies, but if you grow up with them, it obviously adds this weight. And when you hear people talk about these movies, they all talk about like watching with their grandparents, watching with their parents, watching with their uncle, whatever. And it's tied to some memories and stuff. And I didn't grow up watching this. I watched them all as an adult for the first time, all of
Mhm.
them.
And they all kind of follow the same formula too. I feel like there's the big adventure, them finding the relic or whatever they're looking for. There's this big moment of tension with the bad guy, and like this big moment of, oh no, is Indy gonna get out of it this time?
Yeah, and it's pretty much always Nazis, except for Crystal Skull,
Was Temple of Doom
which
Nazis too?
oh,
See, I only
I
watched
probably should have rewatched
Raiders.
that one.
Yeah, I only watched Raiders. I didn't rewatch Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, or um, Crystal Skull. So I mean, but it is Nazis for a decent bit of it.
But so the the beginning story that you think that they're looking for this blade that pierced Christ's side and it's got powers that nobody goes into. It's really brushed out over. Like it's
Hmm.
like yeah, it's got powers and they're very powerful powers. And and Hitler wants this thing and it turns out it's a fake. And Mads Mikkelsen is the guy checking to see if it's a fake. I don't know what his role is with the Nazis, but he's like a high ranking, maybe like a scientist or something with the Nazis. I don't know.
I think he's a physicist, I think.
Physicist with and he tells him it's a fake, and Indy's trying to find this too, finds it as well, while like while he has a moment away from them, he realizes it's fake too. But now all of a sudden we're talking about this dial of destiny,
Hmm.
and it's called like the
Antikythera.
Antikythera
Yeah,
mechanism or something,
something like that.
which is based on a real mechanism, but it has nothing really to do with this thing. And it's only they talk about how it's only half of one, and they're like, oh, Hitler's going to be thrilled with half of a thing that's very important, whatever. And Mads Mikkelsen's character seems really sure that this is very important, and a lot goes on. But I mean, basically, what's happening is Indy's coming to save Toby Jones' character, who is like, this didn't really bother me, but it's like it's played up like Toby Jones' character is one of Indy's best friends of all time, like his little sidekick buddy. They do all these adventures together. They're so close that his daughter, he makes Indy the godfather of his daughter in his will. So they're obviously very close, and we're just now meeting him for the first time.
Right.
Now, I mean, what can you do? But you would think we would have heard about it, this fellow before. But he's basically rescuing him, and he also ends up getting that half of the clock mechanism, and in the process, but Mads Mikkelsen almost gets it, and there's a scene where Mads Mikkelsen is hanging out the wind. Like there's a big chase ensues, and there's a scene where Mads Mikkelsen's character is hanging out at the side of the train, and he just absolutely gets hereditaried, like head lopped off. It throws him out of the train.
And
Like
this is the
it's
thing,
so violent.
dude. Like how fast that train was moving, and how like that would have torn his head off, or
Like he
like
would have
smashed
no.
his brains in, or
There
something.
would be like pulp on the side
Yeah,
of the.
but he
And
lived
he lives. Now I knew he was
with
gonna live.
a
I knew
tiny
he's the villain of
tiny
this
little
movie.
scar on his forehead. Yeah,
Dude, I thought if anything, crazy enough that they're gonna have it that he lives. Like after something that crazy, it's insane to have him live. But if you're gonna have him live, he needs to be walking with a limp. He needs to be in a wheelchair, or he needs to at least have an eye patch or a vicious scar, like deformity on his face, something
yeah.
to make it where it's believable that happened to him. Nope. And
It's
in
like a
fact, I mean, not even long after this thing happens, apparently, he gets pulled into whatever it was, like Operation Paperclip, where like the not like NASA or NASA
NASA.
NASA recruited a bunch of Nazi scientists to work for like to help work on the moon landing or whatever. So
Hmm.
he's part of that. So his like later life is working with NASA, and he helps them land on the moon and whatever. And there's like a CIA team that works to like, I don't know, like protect him as he tries to reclaim
Apparently, they were interested in the Arachathia or whatever, because he had told them about
Antikythera.
Antikythera, and that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they were kind of interested, and then like some shit goes down, and they're like, "Nah, this ain't worth it."
Anyway, that was my first thing where I was like, okay, that first 20 minutes is cool, but the fact that he lives through that, you didn't have to make it look like that, dude. He cannot live through that.
No, there's no
But
way.
anyway, so we meet Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character. I don't have it right in front of me, but I
Helena.
can't. Helena. We meet Helena, and she is. We meet her while she's talking in what is presumably one of Indy's last lectures at this college that he's working for, and because he's about to they're like celebrating him retiring, and it just so happens that like the lesson kind of has to do with um, this mechanism, and she knows a lot about it, and she meets with him, and we find out that's Toby Jones's daughter. He's dead. This is Indiana Jones's goddaughter, and she's extremely interested in this mechanism and is writing a paper about it and everything, and wants to see it because she knows that Indy has it. He swore to destroy it, but didn't destroy it, and she knew he wasn't going to destroy it, and like pretty much the moment. I mean, we haven't met her long at all, and pretty much the moment she gets hands on that thing, and Mads Mikkelsen and fellow Nazi or whatever. I guess it's not Nazis this time. It's like the CIA working with Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh,
But
it's
they
Nazis.
all was it not? Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
Uh, but like, uh, but they all show up and they're after her, and she runs away with it. And she's like, I mean, it's almost like a retelling of the double cross thing at the beginning of King of the Crystal Skull. But she's obviously doesn't care about this thing being in a museum. This is all about her right now. She's gonna make a pretty penny on this, whatever. And she's out auctioning this out. Here's my thing. She's not very likable.
No.
The character's played well, but she's the antithesis of Indiana Jones. She doesn't care anything about anything being belonging in a museum. She's all about the dollar and doing all these like black market underground auctions and paying off police to do. And like she's even like, what was it like? There's like a prince or something, or some very wealthy guy that
Crime lord or something, yeah.
she's convinced him. She's either like married him, or at least she's dating him or whatever, and she just used that to get all this wealth from him and flee. Uh, so there's a lot. I don't know, but like I said, while it's well acted, she's not somebody you really, I don't think, supposed to really like that much in the beginning. I mean, she's just life of crime kind of person.
Hmm.
And let's see, I said yeah, and it's been like 16 years since they've seen each other. And as soon as she reconnects with him, she, just uses him as a way to get at this thing. And she's got a little buddy that she keeps around. That's like this little pickpocket friend of hers named Teddy, I think.
Hmm.
And man, that's knockoff Short Round.
Oh
They
yeah.
just needed a new Short Round, you know.
Exactly.
And there's really not to pick on the kid. I think it's like the first thing he's ever done in his life. It's acted well enough and everything, but there's not a whole lot for him to do except like pretend to fly a plane the first time we see him, and then you know that later he's gonna fly a plane.
Mhm.
You know,
A little
like
foreshadowing.
it's like the heaviest foreshadowing ever. Um, but and like also, how many people? What's the body count of this movie?
Oh, I don't
It's like
know.
a lot of people could die, and one of them, I think, if he doesn't die, they certainly try. But like one of them, I think, is this guy that Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character, uh, swindled out of a bunch of money by marrying him or whatever.
Mhm.
So like that guy, I mean, not to the point of homicide, but that guy's in the right about being mad
Yeah, for
in
sure.
Indy. So it's like, what side is Indy on now? Like, are we protecting this like criminal just because she's? I don't know. That was weird, and
The most brutal death to me was the one later in the movie. There's like this big hulking Nazi guy that's part of Mads Mikkelsen's like bodyguard squad, and him
mm-hmm,
and the Teddy fall in this like river and they're handcuffed together. And Teddy picks the lock and they get hit on this grate, and Teddy makes it out and then handcuffs him to the grate,
mm-hmm,
and he just has to
brutal.
drown there. That was crazy.
Brutal. And also, like, he can't swim. Like he said earlier, he couldn't swim, and then he's like super efficient at swimming.
Yeah.
But so the other thing is, like, after that first 22 minutes where you see Harrison Ford young, as soon as you see him as an old man, he's supposed to be playing a man 10 years younger than he is in real life. So he's
Because
supposed
he's
to be playing a 70-year-old.
which is
Um,
still not really believable that a 70-year-old dude's doing all this stuff.
but I just think it kind of doesn't really work. Like, we kind of need to see Indy younger, I think. And I think like Crystal Skull pushed that to, a certain point, and this pushed it even further where it's like, are we sure we need to see what Indiana Jones, the fictional character, is like as a very realistic old man? And there's like a little for me, there's like a little too much sadness and like melancholy here, and it kind of drags the movie down and slows the pacing down. Like I don't like there's so much action in this movie. And then we had this character who's like halfway between the old man on Up and Clint Eastwood on Gran Torino, like
Yeah.
yelling at his neighbors and telling them to turn down the music, even though they're celebrating like the moon landing. And he just seems like this curmudgeon, doesn't care about the moon landing, doesn't care about anything except like these artifacts that belong in a museum.
I will
I don't
say,
know.
for being
It's a
80
little,
years old, when it shows him without his shirt, he is in pretty good shape for like an 80-year-old fucking dude.
yeah, oh yeah. Um, and I mean, they show him doing things that like you said, like for 80 or 70 or whatever, that it's fairly impressive. I just thought like that was one of the things that kind of, I don't know, it takes a little bit of the, like, Indiana Jones is such a
Believability
like
out of it. Like,
Indiana Jones is such a fantasy mystery, like it's such an adventure thing, and it's not it's supposed to have like a certain lack of believability. Like there's a fine line where
yeah.
you want this to be a work of fiction, and then when you take the guy and make him like an old curmudgeon man yelling at people, I don't know. And uh the other thing is, I don't know how this leads back to anything, but I thought it was interesting that I was like, how are they going to handle the because there's like a scene early on when you first see older Indy where you see Marion's picture on his refrigerator, and he covers it up with a refrigerator magnet, so there's something going on there. And we find out later that I was like wondering how they're going to handle the Shia LaBeouf thing, because I knew Shia LaBeouf wasn't going to be in this,
Yeah.
and he says that he enlisted in the war and got killed in the Vietnam War, and ultimately like the sadness and the lack of his ability to fix the grief on and all that led to their marriage ending. And I don't know. I guess all that's fine. It's just well, it gets into we should probably just go ahead and be getting into spoilers, because we're getting into the plot to some extent already.
Yeah.
But like at ultimately, it is a spoiler, but ultimately at the very end, it plays out like Marianne and Indy get back together, but it's shoved into the very very end of the movie with nothing behind it. So it's just kind
Mhm.
of like
she's
Anyway, let's wrap things up. She's back, I guess, and I don't know why. I don't know
yeah,
why she's back. She's
she
back, and
wanted
everything's
the
fine
yeah,
again.
because she wanted the divorce, and then now she's just back because he's Indy again, I guess.
It just doesn't. It's just, there's no why. But
I don't know.
I don't know. We could talk about this plot and everything forever. The ultimate thing, though, is that this mechanism, and I should have known, is a straight up time machine.
Hmm.
Except it's a really complicated time machine because you have to like I guess there's like naturally occurring rifts in time that create a cloud butthole.
Yep.
Looks exactly like a cloud butthole, and and these rifts in time, like it doesn't happen all the time or just anywhere. Like you have to do some complicated nonsense to figure out where and when these are going to happen. But they have these figured out. I guess Archimedes figured it out,
Hmm.
and he has these times and places mapped out. And so the idea is Mads Mikkelsen, and this is where things get so crazy and convoluted. Mads Mikkelsen says, "You know what? I saw. It's not that America won this war; it's that Hitler lost it. I know what he could have done differently to win the war. So I'm going to use this time machine to go back to 1939. I'm going to kill Hitler and replace my replace him with myself." Pause. What makes you think that killing Hitler is going to make everybody decide to turn around and treat you as their dictator?
All right. It's a little
And
far fetched.
wouldn't it be better? Why wouldn't you go back and kill baby Hitler or like do something to prevent the war from happening altogether? Or
Because he still
you're
wanted
doing
the
a lot.
Nazis to win, so I guess he still needs Hitler to come into power and.
You're just
Uh,
doing a lot of assuming. Like, first of all, you're assuming that this ancient mechanism still works correctly. You're assuming that the scrawlings of a guy who was basically turned crazy by his obsession with this device are accurate enough to get you to the right time and place that you need to be. you're you're just doing so much. And so when they're flying into this sky butthole, uh like they're about to go through the thing, and Indy's in the plane. It's looking bleak for the guy at the moment, and he's like, "Oh, continental drift, you didn't think about continental drift." And and Archimedes didn't think about continental drift and whatever, and that's going to make everything all screwy. And they're like, "Oh, we got to turn around now," but it's too late, and they get sucked into the cloud butthole, and they're spit out, and it's like
Rome is
70
invading
BC.
Syracuse. I think it's like
Yeah,
213 BC, and it's
it's
like
like
the siege of Syracuse by Rome, which is like when Archimedes split the thing that they have.
and oh boy, so they're in ancient Greece now, and
Italy.
uh or Italy, yeah. And they uh well, so all these planes are there, and like there's this one guy that's been this like CIA guy that's been trigger happy this whole time, and now he just straight up works for the Nazis. And uh and he's so trigger happy the whole time, and his first thought is just fire this like machine gun from this plane at all these Roman ships.
Yeah, these
And so you see
triremes. Yeah.
you see like these ancient Romans getting like whoa, whoa, shot up in the. I just could not believe what I'm seeing. It's so absurd. And we do just straight up meet Archimedes. And
But I mean, that's
so
kind
he
of in the same vein of like other movies. Like, there's always something magical, mystical that happens. So,
yeah,
I mean, for Christ's sake, there are
time
aliens, right?
yeah, for some reason that was a little less. I don't
Time
know. They're
time
both. I
travel
know
just
both.
gets it, does it for you.
I know like the international being thing on Crystal Skull and this are both a stretch for, because before it was like, yeah, you look at the arc and it melts people's. There's always been a certain level of like spookiness to it all,
Hmm.
and supernatural stuff. But
Just straight up
I don't
time
know, the
travels a
time travel
little.
thing, and
Yeah.
and and he's like about to die. He gets, by the way, he gets shot in the chest like a long time. Like he shot in the chest, and this goes on for a long time. Where it's like he got shot, like it looks like in the heart.
Yeah,
You
it did
know,
look like. Apparently, it was the shoulder, but it looked like he got shot right
apparently
in
it
the
was the
heart.
shoulder, but he was acting pretty fine for somebody that got shot in the heart or chest or whatever for so long. And then he's basically decided like, nope, I'm actually gonna die here. I'm not going back to the present time. I'm gonna just stay with Archimedes. But it's like you you can't have, these are mutually exclusive things you're asking for. You can't stay here and learn from Archimedes' ways and learn the knowledge of Archimedes and also die in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You, You know what I mean? Like you're staying in a place where there's no modern medicine, and he's like, "No, leave me here. I'm going to learn the rest of my days. I'm going to learn from." But it's like, no, you're not. You're gonna for the next 20 minutes, you're gonna learn whatever you can, and then you're gonna die. Um, and then she convinces him to go back, and I guess that's supposed to be her redemption arc, but she doesn't really. I'm not sure how redeemed she is. I mean, did she learn anything from all this? I guess maybe.
Maybe she becomes more of an archaeologist now and gives the thing to a museum instead of selling it on the black market. Who knows?
Yeah, and then uh, and then the thing with Marion and Indy getting back together and everything. But there's things to like here, but like I shouldn't be checking my watch this often in like an adventure action packed Indiana Jones movie. So I don't know. What are some of the things anything else the things that stood out to you that I didn't? I know there's a lot that I didn't
Well, like I
touch
said,
on there.
there were a couple of things that I liked, like a little throwback things they do. Like there's a point where they're looking for this map and they're gonna have to go under scuba diving to find it. And the guy's like talking about how there's all these eels, and the kid's like, "Oh, they look like snakes." And Andy's like, "Oh, no, they don't." It's like, "Oh
That
my
was a much
god."
better snake reference than Shia LaBeouf tossing Indy and Marion a giant snake as a way to get them out of quicksand and
Yeah.
Crystal Skull.
And then the
Uh,
the other big one, which is also from Raiders, is like the very end of the movie with the Marion thing as well, where it's kind of like, who cares? From Raiders, there's a scene where Indy's like, "Oh, I'm hurt all over." She's like, "Here," and like gives him a kiss, and they basically do that same scene again as old people.
yeah, yeah. I mean, seeing them back together is nice. Like, I guess wouldn't want to end it with like, and they're still divorced, and we don't know what's going on with Marion anymore, and
I was
you
really
know,
waiting because like a big thing about him staying in the past with Helena's character is she's saying like, you can't change the past. That changes everything. And I was just waiting for Shia LaBeouf to walk in at the end and
yeah,
then just
yeah.
being like, what about changing the past? But they didn't. So
I did not expect Shia LaBeouf in this for some reason, but I mean, it wouldn't have been the craziest thing ever. I was expecting like some crazy thing to happen at the end, and I guess the crazy thing that happened at the end was the time travel and meeting
yeah,
Archimedes and stuff. But and I guess it turns out like Archimedes, like the joke is Archimedes has made it where any of these time rift things will lead you back to him, I guess, in this time because he was like Indy's talking about how Archimedes came up with all these weapons to help fend off um, the Roman military, and like there's like this giant death ray that you like redirect magnifying glasses and curved mirrors and things like that to focus the sun and set these ships on fire. And then there's this giant claw thing that reaches and pulls ships out of the water.
hmm
And so he was like the only thing that held him off for as long as it did. But I guess he just wanted to send time travelers back to help him.
I guess I don't know. It
I
kind
don't
of
know.
lost me in that part.
It's like it's not terrible, but I think it is my least favorite one. Like even just having watched Crystal Skull, I think I had more about
It's
Crystal Skull that I enjoyed.
it was just way too much action, I think, and not as much like story development or anything. Like there was story development there, but it was really just kind of shallow, I guess.
And there was something else I wrote down. Hang on, let me see.
And Antonio
Oh,
Banderas' part was tiny. Like,
it's tiny. Yeah, like he does a good job, but like. And by the way, for some reason, when I first saw him, I didn't know Antonio Banderas was in this, and so when he
mm,
first shows up, I was like, "Is that Justin Timberlake and like with a beard and like age makeup or something like that?" But it's Antonio Banderas. But yeah, the Antonio Banderas thing is not. It's fine. He's a great actor, but I don't think they to get such a great actor and not have him do a whole lot is kind of unfortunate. But whenever Teddy knockoff short round kid uh, does finally fly a plane, he just hops into this Nazi airplane and starts flying it, and a lot goes on before the pilot wakes up. Hey, is he just sleeping in his plane? Is that what people do? And also, is he so heavy of a sleeper that he didn't notice until like we're about to fly through a time rift? I don't know. That was a little.
yeah, it's
I was like,
pouring rain. There's crazy
what?
turbulence, thunder and lightning, and this dude's just sleeping
He's
away in the
snoozing.
back. And it wasn't a Nazi plane. It was just like a private plane. But
Just
yeah,
a plane. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to. I don't know how to rate this, but I can't rate it positively. I think there's enough positive here to give it. It's not like a 1 out of 10,
Yeah.
but I don't even know if I can get. I'll give it a. I give it a 5, I guess.
Oh man.
It's like right in the middle, I guess. That feels generous actually to me, but
Yeah, I was gonna
I
go
don't
with
know
a,
what.
a 4.
That's probably more about really how I feel. I feel bad because like this is a lot of people put a lot of hard work into this movie. It shows. It's well made, you know. But like nothing's breaking any new ground here. Like nothing
Nah.
about the cinematography or the sound. You know, the soundtracks obviously they just paid some new guy to like just you know what to do, buddy. It's an Indiana Jones movie, and then
Yeah.
he does that. And he does fine at it, but it's not the same guy. Um, and yeah, it just feels like I feel like as a maybe I'll just say as a country because I don't know how it is
Um.
everywhere else, but like I feel like as a country we're kind of speaking with our dollar here and saying we're a little sick of the like old reboot cash grab 20 years later sequels. Like we already did a I mean there were probably people that thought that Last Crusade was too many Indiana Jones movies and then they come out and do Crystal Skull and most people didn't like that very much. And that was 19 years later. To wait another 15 and do another one,
I know.
um,
I was a little
I don't know.
unnecessary, especially with an old man as Indiana Jones.
There's things to like here. That's why I guess I'm saying 5. But it's more to do with like a general rating than my actual feelings. I mean, I'm not gonna watch that one again unless it's just been so many years that I feel like I should really be a completionist and watch them all again
Yeah.
for the sake of remembering what they're like. But I don't think this is ever gonna move up the ranks for me. If anything, it's probably going to sour in my memory and be a work like I'm going to only remember the bad things about it and not much of the good because there really wasn't a lot to hold on to here,
Nah, I agree with you.
unfortunately.
I agree.
What are you going to do?
Eh.
You know, uh, anything else you want to add about that?
Nah, I think we pretty much covered everything.
So, so the next movie we're watching is called A Field in England. So that's coming up very soon. Um, if you like this, guys, sorry it's negative, but if you like this and you got something out of it, share it with your friends. Hit like below, subscribe, and comment below. If you have seen this, tell us how you felt about it. But if not, or if you have, maybe rank all the Indiana Jones movies, at least the ones you've seen, below, and tell us how you feel about it. This could be your favorite for all I know. You know, it's possible. Anything's possible. Unlikely,
Yeah.
but possible. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.
We'll see ya.